We're ready to start page 6 of our 1.4 notes. So this one looks a little strange, I think. When I look at it, I go, So the first thing my brain says is, I don't like having the X on that side. I like having the X on the left. So I can flip this just like I can an equation, but I do need to flip this if I do that. So that's my first step, is to write 2x plus 5 divided by negative 6, and then see how it's open. It's eating the 2x plus 5, so when I flip it, it should still be open to that. So you're kind of like turning the whole thing over. And then we have the 1. It's pointing to the 1. It's pointing to the 1. So we're all good. So now it doesn't look quite so strange, because now it has the X on the left like we're used to. So then I look and go, well, there's a fraction there, and I really don't want a fraction. So I can use my methods from section 1.1 to get rid of that fraction. When we have a fraction that we don't want, we can multiply both sides by the LCD. Well, there's only one denominator. That's negative 6, so that has to be the LCD. When we were doing section 1.1, I told you if you have 2 or more terms in your numerator, put parentheses around it, then write the negative 6 there, and write the negative 6 here. So whatever I do to the left side, I have to do to the right side. So what happens over here, which is quite nice, negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1. So all I have left on the left-hand side now is 2x plus 5. But look back at page 5 and see how it says if you multiply by a negative, which happens very rarely, but this is one of those rarelies, we have to reverse the inequality. So almost 99% of the time the reverse happens at the end when you're dividing. But on this particular one, because we're multiplying both sides by negative, we do have to We do have to reverse the inequality because we're multiplying by a negative. If it was a positive, we wouldn't have to do that. Only if it's a negative. So the negative 6 is canceled there. 2x plus 5 is less than negative 6. So we subtract 5, because remember we only want x's on the left. Anything without an x moves to the right. So everybody good so far? Canceled that, got negative 6 here, had to flip our symbol because what we highlighted on the other page said if we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to flip that. Then we're trying to get the x alone, so we do the opposite to move any constants to the other side. So you can see here that cancels, so we have 2x is less than negative 11. So our last step is going to be divide by positive 2. So we will not be flipping the symbol again because we're dividing by a positive. And the reason we're doing that is because that's the opposite of multiplying by positive 2 is dividing by positive 2. So we get x is less than, and you can do the same thing with your calculator. You can type in negative 11 fraction bar 2. So if you use the division key, it's going to give you a decimal, which I don't recommend. That's why I use the fraction key. Then it gives me a mixed number. So negative 5.5. And for some reason, students just feel more comfortable graphing a mixed number than they do an improper. So that's why I change it. If I was just solving and not graphing, I would just leave it just like that. So that's our solution. X is less than negative 5.5. So So the two things you should be noticing, one, no equal sign. That means we'll be using a parenthesis. Two, the final symbol in the problem is less than, L, less than, shades left. So parenthesis, -5.5, shade left. And don't forget your arrow. And remember, on the left end of the number line is negative infinity. So as we go to write our interval notation on the next step, keep them in the same order and just bring them down. So negative infinity's first, -5.5 is second, and infinities always get a parenthesis, and because there's no equal sign, the -5.5 gets a parenthesis as well. Remember, order matters and the symbol you choose matters. So no equal sign, parenthesis, order stays the same. So that one wasn't too bad, but that's a nice little trick. If you see your x on the right, you just flip the whole equation over, but then you have to remember to flip that too. So if it's open to the fraction, when you flip it, it has to be open to the fraction. Okay, let's look at this next one. Oh, I see a fraction again. So the minute I see a fraction, I think, oh, well, let's get rid of that fraction. We can multiply everything by the LCD, or the common denominator. So this time, there's only one denominator, so that has to be the common denominator. It's 2. So we put a 2 here. That's the first term, all of this. Remember how we don't go in parentheses. We put a 2 here, and a 2 here, and a 2 here. So you can't skip any terms, and that's the most common thing that students do wrong, is they skip terms. So terms are things separated by addition and subtraction signs, so don't go inside parentheses. So there's the first term, multiply by 2. There's the addition sign, so multiply by 2. Then the inequality, multiply by 2. Then the addition sign. There's my second term on the right side, multiply by 2. So then this turns into 10 parentheses x minus 2. And remember, don't go inside the parentheses with the 2, because you'll go inside now with the 10. And this is half of 2, or you could say, oh, the 2's cancel, so you're just going to get 1 there. That's all that's left because the 2's are gone, times x plus 1. We're not multiplying by a negative, so we don't flip the symbol, only if we multiply by a negative, so we keep it less than or equal to, so this will turn into 4x, and this will turn into plus 6. So every single term, of which there are 4, has now been multiplied by the 2. So now we're on our regular problem. So after we get rid of fractions, then we distribute. So we have 10x minus 20 plus 1x plus 1 is less than or equal to 4x plus 6. And remember, that first step on 1.1 says get rid of fractions, get rid of parentheses, combine like terms. So we got rid of the fractions. We just got rid of the parentheses. Now we're ready to combine like terms on either side. So on this side, there's no like terms, but on this side, we have these two are alike, and then we have these two are alike. So for the x's, 10x plus 1x is 11x. For the constants, negative 20 plus 1 is negative 19. And then the right side for now stays the same. So now we have one variable term and one constant on the left, one variable, one constant on the right. So now we're ready for the next step, which said move all your x's to the left, and you always want your x's on the left with inequalities, otherwise you'll shade the wrong way. So x's must stay on the left. So to move this over, we're going to subtract 4x. Subtract 4x, because we have to do the opposite when we're switching sides, because we want it to cancel on this side, which it does. So now we have 7x minus 19 less than or equal to positive 6. So now anything without an x, which we call a constant, moves to the other side because we're moving to the other side. Again, we do the opposite, plus 19, plus 19. And we get 7x. This is going to cancel. We haven't divided or multiplied by a negative, so notice the symbol is the same as the original, less than or equal to 19, 20, 22, 3, 4, 5. And last, we're dividing by positive 7. So again, our symbol does not flip. And if we want to change that into a mixed number on our calculator, we can. 25 fraction bar 7 turns into 3 4/7. And I'll show you why you don't want to use the division key on this. 25 divided by 7. So what are you going to write? Problem doesn't say round, so that's why we don't use the division key. We use the fraction bar instead. So we move that solution up here. X is less than or equal to 3 4/7. And remember, if Alex says write a fraction, then you write 25/7. If it says write a mixed number, then you write this. If it doesn't indicate, you can write either one. So it's less than, so I know I'm going to be shading left, less than left. So I label my endpoint. I shade left, including the arrow, because this is at the left end. That'll be negative infinity. And now we're ready to write our interval notation. Same order, drop them down. So negative infinity is first. 3 4/7 is second. 3 4/7 has a bracket because of the equal sign in the original problem. And infinities always get a parenthesis. And there you have it. So I think it's time for you to practice. So I would turn off the video right now and practice on number 5. So 5 tenths, 11 tenths. So my common denominator is 10. One decimal place is 10. And remember, this is just a 1 here. If there's no number in front of parentheses, we can put a 1 in. So each of these is going to be multiplied by 10 to get rid of the decimals. And even this, even though it's not a decimal, still gets multiplied by 10. So we learned in section 1.1, when you multiply by 10, it just moves your decimal place over one place. So this would be 5 parentheses 3x minus 2. Remember, don't go inside your parentheses because you're going to get the 5 distributed on the next step. So just the outer numbers. We didn't multiply by a negative, so our symbol doesn't change. Move the decimal one place to the right, and this turns into 11. So look at, our decimals are gone. Minus 1 times 10 is 10 times x plus 5. Again, don't go inside your parentheses with the 10, just the outer number, which we call the coefficient, gets multiplied but not inside. So 15x minus 10. It looks like we're going to get cut off in the middle of this, so we'll just get as far as we can. So 15x minus 10 less than 11, and this time we're going to be distributing negative 10. So that would be negative 10x negative 50. So 11 comes down, negative 10 times x, negative 10x, negative 10 times 5, negative 50. And we'll stop there and start on this in the next video.